So my name's Candice. I'm a performance business partner for Sureway Employment and Training. We're based in Wagga in New South Wales in Australia, which is halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. I've got a map further on down, which I'll show you. Basically, my role in the company is business process improvement. I'm a business process analyst, so and also working with data, with reporting and things like that. About Sureway Employment and Training, our company, we're basically a employment services provider. So in Australia, we're a private company, but we've got a contract with the government to provide services to job seekers. So people who are receiving income support from the government and are currently looking for work have to register or go and see an employment services provider, and it's part of their mutual obligations in order to attend our organisation. So basically we have two major customers. The first are the job seekers who come to see us. We put together programs, talk to employers on their behalf, help them with their resume, support them in order to get work. We have obviously different levels of job seekers. Those people who come to us who have skills and who are ready to find work on their own, they've just been unsuccessful to date, and therefore on income support. And then we also have the other side of the spectrum where people who have sort of non-vocational barriers to employment that need further assistance, such as local services and things like that. Our other customer are obviously employers. So under the jobactive contract, so that's what it's called, the employment services contract in Australia, employers can come to any employment services provider, and we can provide them with candidates for free. So if you think about recruitment services or a recruiting company, and they usually charge employers for placing the people that they find for them. Our employment services are free because they're subsidised by the government for the employers. So the employers can also get things like wage subsidies by employing job seekers who come through us and things like that. We've been around since 1991 and grown significantly since then. We were started by two women who started educating women who were coming back into the workforce after having children, and they just tendered for contracts and ended up in the employment services space. So it's still a family-run business. Our CEO is the son of the founder. His sister is the General Manager of Employment Services. His wife is the General Manager of Innovation, Performance and Projects, if I can remember that. So yeah, it's a real family-run business. We're based in a little town in Wagga. It's it's not a town, it's a city technically. 65,000 people. It's probably not that much for you guys, but so that's Sureway. So we're based here in Australia. So we're kind of halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. And this is our range. So basically we have about 73 physical offices, I believe, across New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. So there are three of the states in Australia. And then we have about 100 other, we have 100 in total cities and small, and we've got a lot of remote and sort of outreach towns, we call them, that we service in order to go and see those job seekers and help them find work. Obviously, that poses a lot of challenges. The more remote a town, the less jobs there are there. So that's where we come in to help. So the whole reason we ended up sort of steering towards Laserfiche is that we were coming up to a brand new contract. So the year before, we tendered for the jobactive contract. So we've always been providing employment services to the government, but in July 2015 there was a new contract coming up for grabs called the jobactive contract. So basically all of the employment services that we were delivering up until June 30, 2015 ceased, and we started the new contract. It's essentially the same thing, but we had to change the way that we did things. A whole new contract, and the government decided to change, as they do, a few rules on how we were to provide services and things like that. So we had to kind of come along for the ride. So like I said before, jobactive is available there for job seekers and for employers we kind of connect them together in the community. Sureway's journey. So we had some issues that we, coming into the new contract, that we wanted to look at before we started. The way we service clients is one of them. So traditionally, employment services in Australia have been very one-on-one, very time-consuming when you're sitting there for an hour with a client, talking about their job history, setting up their resume. We've got things that we have to do called job plans, all of this stuff that's required by the government to do. And we wanted to move to more of a group servicing model where there was more self-service involved, and this is where Laserfiche really helped us out. Paper everywhere. I'm sure there's a lot of people familiar with that. So we have, for every client that we have a client file. So you've got physical cabinets, you've got manila folders, you've got paper, you've got the time to file, all of that stuff. And then there's always the risk of losing information going into the wrong file, all that kind of stuff was going on. So document storage, and also information retrieval. So we have a centralised office in Wagga, and then, like you saw, all of our other offices throughout New South Wales, South Australia and Victoria. So it was very hard to get information in a centralised manner. All of the files were kept locally in all of the different offices, and they also travelled around with our consultants, particularly when they were servicing outreach sites where they start at a base office and then they go out to the other offices to see clients. So where do we start? Basically, Sureway said, we need help. And our IT manager, Paul, lovely, spoke to Mick Franco from Microtech DPS, and they started talking about Laserfiche. I believe it was about 11 o'clock at night. They were so excited about it. The Microtech DPS then hooked us up with Rico and gave us a great presentation. Paul and I actually flew up to Sydney for the day. We ended up with only about 2 hours because our flight was delayed. But in that 2 hours, they showed us a lot of really interesting things, and a lot of things you've probably seen as part of the conference as well, or already using. And then Rico hooked us up with Laserfiche. So it's kind of a big sort of conglomerate of people. And then what happened was we had to form the super project team, as I like to call them. So contacting Microtech DPS about getting Laserfiche probably was about 8 weeks, I believe. To me, it felt like 4.
It was 2 weeks capital and resources.
Yeah.
And then you were given the project at 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks. It was 4. So basically standing in the office, and our CEO goes, yeah, so by the way, even though we've been working for the last 5 months on this this new contract and getting all of our processes changed, I also want electronic client files, which is no small feat. So basically using all of these people, so people in Sureway, Microtech, IntelliWorks are our IT provider, and Rico, we had to come together as one big team. Everyone had a lot of different skills, obviously. I didn't know anything. I still don't know that much technically about Laserfiche. I'm a business process person, so one of the big things was bringing all these people together. We had to have a really short time frame, and Rico provided us with a project manager in Will Parker, who was amazing on keeping us all on track. We also just kept our scope very clear. So the first thing we wanted was electronic client document storage, so moving all of those paper files that were on site into a centralised repository. And then we wanted to use Laserfiche Forms to kind of try and speed up our commencement process, which I'll go through in a moment on how we ended up doing that. And then a simple scanning solution for anything that we couldn't use forms for. If you think about client files, you've got things that you can fill out online, and then you've got things that clients actually have to physically sign. So we needed a scanning solution to get all of those other documents into that repository as well. So they were our 3 things that we needed, which, you know, in looking back on it, they're all 3 quite big things. But I thought, yeah, that's only 3. That's fine. So the solution we were provided were was quick fields, forms, workflow. We've obviously got the Laserfiche client. We use Citrix, and we've got the web application. And also Microtech DPS had to go to every single one of our 73 sites or remotely configure those to allow for our scanning solution. So it was a really big job. And just to give you a bit of an idea, this contract change, all of our business processes changed. In fact, I think the only thing that didn't change with this contract was our logo. We changed everything, all new documentation, all new processes, new people, new offices, new fit out, all of the infrastructure, IT infrastructure. I could go on forever. So we were doing all of this at once, and then we decided to do this last minute. So it's a good thing it was easy to put in. So the first one, like I said, we had manila folders. You've got time in creating a folder. The physical filing cabinets on sites. We're redoing our site, so we needed that space to account for the new plan. Trying to cut down the time, and we've also got those privacy risks. So if you've got paper, it's sitting on desks, you've got other job seekers around, everything is confidential. We're dealing with people's history, employment history, sometimes their health history, so you want to keep that as confidential as possible. So we really wanted something that mimicked the filing cabinet idea in the real world. We didn't want to change the concept of what we had, we just wanted to make it more electronic. We wanted to hold all that information in one location so that we could get to it from any office, have the ability to send that information electronically, access it, and minimise that administration. So basically what we did for our repository, and as far as talking about our filing system, is that we set up the first level was the sites. So you can see there Albury, that's the site, Ararat, Ardrossan, Bairnsdale. I don't even know how to say that. Bairnsdale. So basically there's the site. Then we have the alphabetical letter, which is based on the last name. What we wanted to do was to make it easy for our staff to be able to navigate this manually. So obviously Laserfiche is really powerful in its searching, and we've got unique ID called a job seeker ID, which you can see there. And you can just search, and it doesn't matter where it is, it'll bring it up for you. But our staff were obviously used to going to a folder in a set spot, and this helped it kind of mimic that way that they were doing it in paper. And all of this structure gets done automatically by workflow, I think. I don't know the names of which component does what, I just know that it works. So basically what happens is that when a file comes in, workflow automatically goes, it's related to that site, and this is the name of the person. Because what we did was we have an employment services system that the government provides us with, and within that system we have all of our clients' information. So, how long they've been registered with us, whether they've got kids or not, how long they've been unemployed, all that kind of information is all contained in here, and we can pull all of that data out. And we've been using it for years in all our internal systems and our reporting. And Laserfiche, thankfully, can connect to that information as well. So that basically as soon as you put that unique ID in, the job seeker ID, it connects to the data file, and then it automatically creates that structure without any of our staff having to do anything. So instead of them having to even physically get up and go to a filing cabinet, open the right drawer, find the alphabetical order, it does it all for them. So this is basically what the workflow does, which I've kind of gone through anyway. So basically it identifies the site or the branch the client's referred to. They create the client folder within that site, create the alpha, the surname letter if it's not already there, name the client folder, have it consistent. None of our staff have access to create folders or anything in the repository, so it's all very standardised and done very clearly so that it doesn't get completely crazy, because you can imagine with 350 licenses how that would end up. And it also pulls other metadata from those data files that we get from the Department of Employment and adds it to those files as well, so it makes it really simple. So the forms, like I said before, we have a commencement process. So when someone first gets referred to us by the government, they sign up for income support, and then they come to us And basically we have to go through a series of information to tell them about the services that we provide, what their expectations of us should be and what our expectations of them are. And I mentioned before that in the previous contract we did a lot of one-on-one. So this is the setup for the current contract. They come in and it's self-service, whereas in the last contract they would come in, they'd be met by an individual consultant, they'd sit down for an hour, maybe more, maybe less, and then they'd be on their way. So we've really changed the way that the consultants work. Like I said, everything with the contract changed, even the way that we service our clients. And we wanted to make it sort of a really quick and easy self-service, self-paced environment for our job seekers to come in and read at their own pace the information that we had to provide. So that's just a couple of pictures about how it looks. Now, the way to facilitate that was we created a really basic client portal. I just whipped it up in SharePoint. It's not very exciting. It's got some pretty pictures on it. But basically, when a client first comes into the office, they see this. The beauty of Laserfiche Forms is it's just a URL. So basically, in the task section, we direct them to this area and they complete those tasks in that order. What those tasks are Laserfiche Forms. So you can see there, Task 2A, the Employment Services Guarantee. This is what it looks like when they open it up. I'll just show you what the actual department one looks like. So this is the one that the Department of Employment actually provide to us. So all it is information. It's not actually a form. It's just information that we needed to provide to the job seeker. They don't have to sign anything. We just have to make sure that they've read it. And previously we did that one-on-one with a consultant going, yes, I've sat there with the client and I've watched them read that, or I've explained it to them. So all Rico and Microtech did was to take that content that was in the department's template and put it into a Laserfiche form. So it's exactly the same information. And then the only difference is, and we tried to keep it as consistent as possible, there's about 4 or 5 pieces of information we wanted them to go through, is that they have this little form at the end which just says, who are you? So what's your first name, your last name, your job seeker ID, and where are you, and just confirming that you've read it. So all of our forms, it's just information. It's not actually capturing anything. It's just allowing us to say that person was in our office on this day and we can see that they've read it. So basically they click on that link which opens the form. They read the document and they scroll to the end. They complete the fields and they click submit, and then it's sent straight into their client file. And this is often where they first come to us. So this is when their folder is created in the repository, all done automatically. If you think about it, before the consultants had to print out a lot of information, have a pack basically ready for all of the clients when they came in, and now it's already there. They don't have to do anywhere near as much preparation for all of these clients coming in, so they can see a lot more, a lot quicker. So the third one, I think I'm up to the third one now. That was quick. So we do have, whilst that was just information and we're not required by the government to get a physical sign-off by the client, there were some, we don't have individual client authentication yet, so we don't have individual logins for clients. That's where we want to move to in the future, but because we're doing this so quickly, that was out of scope. So basically what we wanted for anything that we couldn't do through a Laserfiche form, we wanted a scanning solution, which was just as easy. So this is one of our paper forms that we use, and the job seeker has to physically sign this one, and we have to show the department that they have signed it. We don't have fancy electronic signatures just yet. That's future. So this is one of the ones that always, with every new onboarding or commencement, will get scanned. Now, what we wanted to do was make scanning as simple as possible as well. And what I mentioned before was that Microtech DPS configured all of our local scanners at all of our sites to allow scanning directly from our printers into Laserfiche. So all we have to do is enter in the job seeker ID. So just like they do in the Laserfiche form, they enter the job seeker ID in at the printer, and then it goes into some fancy place where it picks it up and then pops it in their client file. So whether something gets scanned first or whether they fill out a Laserfiche form first, it has the same workflow attached, and it will create that folder and that structure within the repository for them. So again, for our staff, it's that immediate electronic capture. They can then give this form back to the client and they can take the copy with them, or they shred it. So getting rid of paper. And it's really, I won't lie, we had some fun implementing it, but I think everyone's got it now. Nothing is ever implemented perfectly. So there's actually a lot of different ways that information can get into Laserfiche. So with a client file and the way we're doing it before, we have the paper-based file. We had people saving things to their own drive on their computers, onto the shared drive on the computers. We had other folders with, we've got an RTO, so they have another folder. So there's information all over the place. And now what Laserfiche has given us is a way to get all of that information electronically into the one place. So we can save attachments from emails. We can scan in. The forms come from the client portal directly into their file. We've also linked it into other internal applications, which I'll go through in a second. Microsoft Office connects to it, so if a consultant can sit there and type out a resume in Word and then save it directly into Laserfiche, again, there's no sort of printing it out and saving it or trying to find where that file goes in the network. It does it all for them. Which is the coolest thing. So the Microsoft Office. This was something that I didn't know we were getting, so I was quite excited. I was like, oh, look, that's it. So when we open up Word and everything, I'm sure you guys probably already all have this. You can save directly to Laserfiche, and then you can save versions as well, so that's really good. We've got the Laserfiche Snapshot, which is, being able to get any sort of picture and convert that and being able to OCR to text and have better searching. And what we've improved since is, I mentioned we had some internal IT applications. So one of them is a placement database. So working for the government, we have a contract, and our revenue comes from when we place job seekers into a position. We then get a fee from the government for doing that. And in order to claim that fee, we have to provide evidence that person is working. So that's typically in the form of pay slips and things like that. So in our internal system, we were able to add a button which is just a link to another Laserfiche form, where they then upload that payslip evidence. It is linked into our internal system, and then you can also get to it directly in their client file. So again, bringing all of that information into that centralised repository together has been really cool, and we'll certainly be doing a lot more of our internal system integration, because that's probably what we use the most. So how do we roll all of this out? So the final, because I wasn't familiar with Laserfiche, we were implementing it for the first time. I didn't even know what it was even going to look like until probably a week before. So we had Microtech were really good in setting us up with system instructions and taking screenshots as they were developing, and Rico as well as they were developing, which was really good. So the training, we were really lucky because Laserfiche is actually used, like I said, from commencement. So the moment that person walks through the door, we've got them hooked up to Laserfiche in some way. Either that's by going onto the client portal and filling out the electronic form, or it's by scanning information into their file. So for the first 6 weeks of the new contract, we had 6 weeks to get 25,000 clients commenced through this process, which is each person will probably take about an hour to get commenced. So you can imagine why we moved to the group servicing environment, because you just physically couldn't do it if you were doing it one-on-one. So what we focused on at the start was the commencement process. We had a lot of checklists, system instructions. Rico did a online presentation for us, which we were then able to share with everyone else. We had performance coaches and site champions. We tested and locally at our Wagga sites. Sarah was a big help in that. Thanks, Saz. So it wasn't pretty, but it still worked. Like, essentially, if we hadn't implemented Laserfiche and if we hadn't automated a lot of this stuff, it would have been a lot worse. And actually, as a provider, we did really well. And I think at the end of the 6 weeks, we had 95% of our clients onboarded. So it was an amazing feat, I think. So the benefits, the time, like I said before, you can see 5 people in an hour instead of 1. The customer service improvement, one of the benefits that we didn't think of was that our job seekers, we've got a lot of job seekers who aren't that computer savvy and are often a little bit scared of computers. And so the first time that they come into us, we're able to sort of help them in a group, set them up at a computer, and the Laserfiche form is so simple and easy to fill out. It's like their first introduction to IT. So that was really good because we're sort of building confidence in our job seekers in that way as well. It was a really, really good thing, that some feedback that we got back from the sites. The storage space, obviously the physical cabinets, the paper, the cost of equipment and paper, the quality assurance and compliance, so making sure that files weren't out on desks, all of that information. And also we have a quality assurance team centrally who, like I said before, when we claim a fee from the government, we have to have evidence, and often they'll do retrospective audits of payments that they've made. So now we have much quicker access to all of that evidence, whereas before we had to call a site and say, hey, can you send this information up or scan it to us, or we couldn't find it. So document control, so in particular with those forms, the forms that are provided to the clients are always up to date, and we have an internal system. SharePoint is our internal document repository at the moment, and hopefully we'll move that on to Laserfiche at a later point. But we have often problems with people kind of printing off forms and hiding them in their drawers, and then, that one hasn't been used for 10 years, but they're still using it. So this really helps with document control as well, and they just know that one online is the latest one, and we've got much better control over it. And then also the process control. So it's allowed us to make it much simpler to onboard a client. So where to next? Everything. So we have, I think it's around 100 paper forms that we've created internally, or that the department require us to have in order to capture information. We'll be looking at every single one of those. We've got InfoPath forms, we've got SharePoint registers, we've got internal databases and systems that are sending information or keeping information all over the place. Our finance processes, that's been spoken about a lot here, and HR. We call people and culture because it's fancy. Contracts processes, we want to look into our capital expenditure for, just little things, and then hopefully build it up. The risk audit and compliance processes, almost everything we can see as an application within our company for Laserfiche. So we're pretty excited about this year. With the contract changeover, we were pretty focused on making sure that went well, but this year is hopefully a Laserfiche year. So if I've got any tips, it's particularly if you've got a really quick implementation like us. Wouldn't recommend it. No, everything actually went really well. Know your scope. So, be really clear on what you want to achieve. Just with any project, really, you've got to get everyone on board, and particularly when you're working with multiple companies, we've all got to have that same understanding. Build in exception management, particularly with workflow. Just little things like someone will enter the wrong JSID, job seeker ID, and so we've got these exception folders that people can then go through. Nothing's ever lost, it's just it doesn't know where it goes. So you'll always need to build in exception management and think about people data entry errors if you're not going to pick it up from another form. What we had at the start wasn't perfect, but we made adjustments as we went along, and we'll still continue to make adjustments. Don't be afraid to go out there. And we start with a big picture, perfect world, and then the technology will usually fit it, but maybe not completely perfectly, and then kind of build down from that. So that's kind of what my tips are. They're not very exciting, are they? Any questions? Yeah.
A couple of them. One was your portal page. So when the job seeker came in, they would see this page. Was that done in SharePoint?
Yes, that was done in SharePoint. Yeah. So the Laserfiche Forms were just the URL, so we just made the link in SharePoint directly to it.
And you also talked about, so the second question was, you also talked about integrating with Microsoft Word so they could actually fill in their resume and save it to the repository.
Yes.
That would mean that each of the workstations were licensed with the device license?
No, it's more the consultants at their computer, so they would sit with the job seeker to do that resume, or they would even do it when the job seeker wasn't around, so they'd get the information when they come in, fill out the resume, and then be able to upload it afterwards. So it's not necessarily the job seeker doing it. We do also have, the government has provided us with another system which allows the job seeker to do it themselves, but it's more when they need assistance. So if we have, so our consultants use Word, and they would save that from Word into the repository, into the client file.
No, it's Forms portal, or is it just the license
Forms portal. Yeah.
How did your users adapt from the SharePoint interface to the Laserfiche interface?
Well, at the moment, the forms are mostly for the clients, so they didn't have access to SharePoint before. The difference is that a consultant would go into our SharePoint document repository and print off the forms for the client, whereas now the client comes in and goes directly to that SharePoint portal. So there was the only change was for our consultants to not print off anything, and the clients now come in and are self-directed, whereas they didn't have that before. They would sit and get paper.
For those that are getting into Laserfiche to look at those forms, do they find it easier than doing it in SharePoint?
Yes, I think they do. Like, I think it just looks prettier. I mean, if you think of SharePoint, it's just a Word document, right? So Laserfiche has that cool background, and it's just it looks more professional and fancy. So yeah, I think so. We've had nothing but really good feedback. We did like a project review after we've implemented the contract. We're 6 months in now. And one of the biggest things that our staff frontline loved was the client portal and the forms, and the fact that it was self-service and it looks professional.
You had a reporting page a long time back,
Yeah.
and it was intriguing. You had certain bar graphs in the middle of it, and I'm wondering, what are you tracking and why? Your reporting, it seemed like a dashboard, but I think there were 4 or 5 classifications.
Yeah, that was it. That was the department's employment services system.
So are you tracking back to the government to report to them, or are you?
They provide this to us. We didn't build this.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks nice, doesn't it? No, we didn't do that.
So you're not really doing any dashboard per se to track. All right, first, maybe when you're delegating the responsibilities of here's the new client coming in, how do you delegate it in the first place?
That's all. It's mostly managed through this ESS web, the department. So we can assign and manage by all of that's done kind of through the department system. And then there's certain things. It's mostly the records management that we do on our side. So there's certain things when a client comes in, for example, their appointment is in this system, we have to say that they've attended. But as far as all the records, that we can't upload information into the department system, we have to keep that all internally. So that's why we've got Laserfiche for more the document and records management side.
And how many processors do you have, like 30, 50, 70?
Consultants, I think it's we've got 350 licenses,
Okay. 400. Yeah.
400 licenses.
So how do you know that Bob doesn't have 84 applications on his desk and Mary has 0? And how do you?
We have, we have a quality assurance team who do regular audits, so we do go out to sites and visit site and make sure that that doesn't occur, and management. Yeah.
Any performance issues related to the forms portal and stuff?
No, I don't think we've had any. We had connectivity issues and trouble getting on the network and the internet right at the start, particularly in some of our remote sites. But as far as forms, we've had no issues with being able to open them, and the server hasn't been down once.
Multiple submissions at the same time?
No.
They use Citrix, they're in Citrix environment.
Mm.
Hopefully in a Sydney office, or maybe a couple of types. Because where all these offices are, we all know them.
Got it, yeah.
So we tried to minimise the data up and down to this.
Display stuff is,
There was a little bit of a performance hit to the servers initially, and we're a completely virtual environment, and IntelliWorks provide infrastructure and service, and so they have monitoring systems, everything to see how that load's going. Yeah, we did have to do a little bit of tweaking. CPU ran allocation to the servers, but yeah, it wasn't too bad. There was definitely a performance hit, but no one noticed.
so your forms routing service didn't just stop?
No.
Because 15 people submitted a form at the same.
No, and we had all of our sites had 9 a.m. appointments across the country. They were all submitting forms all at the same time, and we didn't have any issues.
Yeah, we
No clusters or any of that stuff, just one service, one server?
it is the back end is a clustered SQL server that this utilises, and there is just one server for Masling. But yeah, the back end infrastructure, the virtual machines run on is and tier 1 disks are all SSD, so performance is generally not significant problem.
Any other questions?
It's worth commenting too that we beat most of our competitors in the industry
Yeah.
during that
I'm
period.
sorry, I missed that.
We beat most of our competitors in the industry to get those goals that the government set of enrolment for our clients.
Mm.
And that was certainly a huge part of that was because we had an efficient process to do that.
Yeah,
And it held up, whereas the government system
did not. Oh.
it was their virtual infrastructure and the resources they allocated to it were very underwhelming. And it took them quite.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Most of the stuff went into their exceptions folder, which was set up, and then once that was running and they could pull the data and the data
Yeah.
on the website, all those exceptions went straight to Laserfiche.
Yeah.
And it's probably what you said before about like start change and things like that. When I did on-site testing the first day, like they went live, and it was the performance coaches that had done some training. There was probably that slight resistance until they could walk over to the computer and open up the file and see it in there. Oh, this is great. It was really embraced quite quickly.
Yeah.
Is the government paying you faster as a result of this, and how do you feed this information to finance to get paid?
No. I don't think so. No, because once we basically we have to set up appointments, and it doesn't really matter. Basically, we get paid the day that they're commenced with us. We have a fortnightly payment period, so within that payment period, whoever's commenced within that period will get the payment for. So it probably hasn't, to be honest, improved that part, but it's certainly we get paid more because of the volume we're doing is higher.
Oh.
Yeah, so we can commence way more clients than we could before. Yeah.
And how does it get to finance? How does
It's all through the department system.
Oh, it goes back
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to record in this department system, and then there's information that we record out. Yeah, so this is kind of our main system, and then we've got our internal ones on top of that. So all the payment and everything's through there.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Let's give another hand for Candice.